And welcome to Hannity. And we begin this Monday night with a Fox News alert. Tonight, Russian forces are still very much stalled in the north around Kyiv, and in the south, the city of Mariupol continues to face a barrage of indiscriminate shelling. Now, its residents are completely cut off from water, power, supplies. One AP reporter inside the city described it this way, quote, "Time was measured from one shell to the next, with bombed out apartment buildings and an endless line of dead people and dead children." On the radio, the only thing that could be heard was the following constantly repeated message: Mariupol is surrounded, surrender your weapons. And yet the city refuses to surrender. If Russia wants to take Ukraine, it looks like they're going to have to fight for every single inch. But the situation is dire on the ground tonight. In Kherson, Russian soldiers opened fire. This is terrible to watch on many peaceful protesters, hitting innocent civilians yet again. Scores of men, women, and children murdered every single day by Putin's soldiers, and estimates of as many as 10 million refugees or more have fled the country. Now, there are new reports of mercenaries being sent to Ukraine by Putin with orders to assassinate President Zelensky and his entire family. So make no mistake, Vladimir Putin is waging a baseless war of aggression against a sovereign nation. My position on this has been very clear. Although there are people that are so stupid in the mob and the media, they have no clue. There's no ambiguity where I stand. As I have said over and over again, no matter how bad this situation becomes in Ukraine, there can never be any U.S. boots on the ground. And I also add there can't be a no-fly zone where we are in direct combat with Russia in the air. We are not the world's police force. We can no longer send our national treasure, your sons and daughters, our sons and daughters, to fight and die in a conventional war pushed by politicians, frankly, on both sides. They all start out gung-ho. They start the war. They never fight to win the war. Then the war gets politicized after whatever period of time. Then the politicians say, oh, never mind. The soldiers get pulled out, like the Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan. We end up back at square one after so much sacrifice and bloodshed and so many dead Americans and so many injured Americans. Never again. And we do need to learn the lessons from history. No more Vietnams, no more Afghanistans. But we can and we should learn from history what does work. And I'll explain that in a minute. In short, you get weapons and supplies to our allies, in this case in Ukraine, so they can fight and win this war by themselves. They have shown great courage. They have shown the will to fight and the will to defeat Vladimir Putin's invasion. Now, my position is based on two very specific foreign policy successes. We should learn from them. The first is what's called the Reagan Doctrine. Here's how Ronald Reagan, then president, described it in 1985. Take a look.
And tonight, we declare anew to our fellow citizens of the world, freedom is not the sole prerogative of a chosen few. It is the universal right of all God's children. We must stand by all our democratic allies, and we must not break faith with those who are risking their lives on every continent from Afghanistan to Nicaragua to defy Soviet-supported aggression and secure rights which have been ours from birth. Support for freedom fighters is self-defense.
We as conservatives, we believe in natural rights, God-given rights that were endowed by our Creator, that rights don't come from our government. Instead of sending in waves of U.S. ground forces to foreign lands to fight long, bloody conventional wars, well, Ronald Reagan armed our allies so they could fight for their own freedom in their own countries. He did this with Nicaragua, with the Contras against the Sandinistas and Daniel Ortega. They were fighting the Soviet-backed, communists there. And he also did it with the Mujahideen, albeit imperfect people, in Afghanistan. And by the way, Reagan never put a single American boot on the ground to fight there, none. But instead of cowering in fear or attempting to appease the Soviets, he stood up to them at every turn without starting a long conventional war. And guess what? It worked. The Soviets were defeated in Afghanistan thanks to the Stinger missiles that Ronald Reagan provided them. Reagan knew that evil, especially in the form of an ism, communism, fascism, Nazism, would spread like a cancer if left unchecked, and Reagan called the former Soviet Union the evil empire. That's why Reagan said, quote, support for freedom fighters is self-defense. President Reagan was right. His policy succeeded. Peace through strength worked. In 2014, we witnessed the rise of ISIS in the Middle East, and it happened on, that's right, Joe Biden and Barack Obama's watch, because they did nothing. Not only did these terrorists take over huge and large portions of Iran and Syria, but they also ripped through Europe and the United States with a wave of terrorist attacks. That is until Donald J. Trump was sworn into office in January of 2017. And that now brings us to the second foreign policy success, another doctrine we should learn from, and that's the Trump Doctrine. Shortly after taking office, President Trump bombed the ISIS caliphate into oblivion. And by the way, the one that Joe and Obama allowed to grow. And President Trump used new American sophisticated weaponry technology and air power in the form of drones without a traditional ground force. Trump repelled ISIS fighters in a short amount of time, defeated the entire caliphate. He fought that fight to win, and win he did, and even took out the leader of ISIS, al-Baghdadi, and his associates. And President Trump also used airstrikes to counter Syria and Iran, including a drone strike that successfully killed Iranian terrorist Soleimani, remember, on the tarmac. And you can listen to President Trump describe this in 2019. Take a look.
Baghdadi's demise demonstrates America's relentless pursuit of terrorist leaders and our commitment to the enduring and total defeat of ISIS and other terrorist organizations. Last night, at my direction, the United States military successfully executed a flawless precision strike that killed the #1 terrorist anywhere in the world, Qasem Soleimani. Under my leadership, America's policy is unambiguous to terrorists who harm or intend to harm any American. We will find you. We will eliminate you. We will always protect our diplomats, service members, all Americans, and our allies.
No boots on the ground, and American victory, and President Trump's doctrine was very, very strategic and very effective, and it worked. And it sent a message of strength to the rest of the world and all the other despots and all the other dictators and all of those that had territorial ambitions of their own. Now, the U.S. cannot use its air power in Ukraine. Putin is a much different enemy than, say, Baghdadi or Soleimani. But one thing does remain constant. Aggression from hostile actors will only get worse and worse until they're stopped. And right now, thus far, the Ukrainian people are quite bravely upending Vladimir's territorial expansion. If Ukraine prevails, Putin's ability to attack other countries, especially NATO members, is greatly diminished, and peace can once again return to the continent of Europe without a catastrophic world war. That's why it's very important that the U.S. supply Ukraine with the weapons and the supplies they need to fight their war and bring Vladimir to his knees the way Reagan supplied the Mujahideen. This is something I have said many, many times. But oddly enough, over there at Rolling Stone magazine, the great, journalistic integrity that they have, and other liars in the media mob are actually accusing me. They're saying Hannity is parroting Russian propaganda and supporting Vladimir Putin. Well, not really, because I went out on the limb and I told the truth, and I've been saying it since before the election in 2020. Joe Biden is weak, he is frail, and a cognitive wreck, and everybody knows it. Every poll now shows the majority of the American people see it, and by the way, our friends see it, and unfortunately, the world's hostile actors and hostile regimes see it also. For the last 2 years, I've pointed this out. Well before Putin's invasion of Ukraine, I warned that Biden's mental weakness will have serious, significant ramifications across the globe. Take a look. Joe, let's be honest, was never particularly a smart or a bright guy, but what we're now seeing, sadly for him, is a hollow shell of his former self, a total, complete cognitive mess. What's really sad is the reality that if we can all see it, so can America's enemies, and we have real enemies in Iran, in China, North Korea, Russia. Vladimir Putin doesn't respect or fear Joe Biden. Now, America's enemies all over the world, they are smelling blood in the water. We see Russia fully emboldened. They're threatening to invade Ukraine. We have a president and a vice president. They are not up to this job. But I know this, and you know this, America's enemies, they're also seeing everything we're seeing. And sadly, tonight, as a result, the world and our country is less safe and it is less secure. Unfortunately, I was right. Russia invaded Ukraine in part because Putin did not fear, did not respect Joe Biden, especially after his debacle in the Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan. If you're keeping track like we are, it is day 219 since Joe Biden abandoned our fellow Americans behind enemy lines. And by the way, Joe Biden is so clearly not up to the job with each passing day. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And I wish I was wrong, but I'm not. Take a look.
The First Lady's husband contracting COVID, but look at this room and what you see. Pardon? That's right. She's fine. It's me. That's not together. The second lady, the first gentleman.
For a mom to get her kid on the internet to be able to do their homework has to pull into the McDonald's parking lot? I mean, for real. That's what's happening. This law is going to put an end to all of that. It's going to put people in a much different position to be able to determine their own judgments about when to sell their cattle.
And a pound of Ukrainian people, the proud people, pound for pound, ready to fight with every inch of energy they have, is becoming much more informed on the motives of some of the political players.
I don't show you this to mock or laugh at Joe Biden. It is sad. I used to laugh at it, but it's so serious, it just isn't funny anymore. Instead, this should serve as a daily reminder that our country and the world is less safe with that guy as president. And now a majority of you, the American people, see what I was talking about during the campaign, and that is Joe's declining cognitive state. And every hostile actor and every hostile regime that studies the U.S., guess what? On the world stage, they see it also. And with that said, no one has been more anti-Putin than yours truly. Vladimir, clear and simple. He invaded a sovereign country. He's killing innocent men, women, and children. He's an evil war criminal. He's responsible for the bloodshed of all of these people in Ukraine. He has blood on his hands. And as I've said many times, I hope somebody in his inner circle, maybe a general, I don't know, maybe an advisor, could take him out by any means necessary and put an end to this senseless war and death. Take a look. Now, Putin, I've been saying it all week. It's interesting the media finally picked it up. Putin has got to be stopped by whatever means necessary, one way or another. It's a simple rule in life. If you invade an innocent country and you kill women and children and men, you forfeit your right to lead a country and you forfeit your right to live. And I hope that people around Vladimir Putin, well, I hope they take action sooner than later. I hope and pray this war comes to an end one way or another. But sadly, I doubt Biden's big trip to Europe this week is going to tip the scales. Earlier tonight, he gave a very, well, another bizarre speech about a new world order. Pay attention to this one.
Now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it, and we've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it.
New World Order, I guess, what the hell does it even mean? Oh, that's right. Joe wants to do a new deal, give tens of billions of dollars to Iran, let Russia broker the deal along with China, maybe even allow a $10 billion Iranian-Russia nuclear facility to be built, and then let Iran get rich selling us oil or sending emissaries over to Venezuela and trying to work out a deal with them to buy their oil, and begging OPEC that keeps rejecting him to produce more oil that we could produce right here in the USA. That's not exactly projection of leadership or freedom, but I digress. Tonight, there are a lot of opinions about Putin's invasion on Ukraine and what our role should be. Make no mistake, we are at a very, very critical juncture. Whether we like to admit it or not, we're just one border away from what would be a world war based on our alliance in Article 5 with other NATO countries. An attack against one is an attack against all. But the so-called leader of the free world just cannot bring himself to put in a full week of work because before his big trip to Europe, well, Joe took the weekend off in Delaware, relaxing at the beach, enjoying nice leisurely rides on his bicycle. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.